welcome back to another episode of Two Jews, 10 Opinions. I'm Ailee Shanes.
And I'm Levi D'Amato.
We are so glad to welcome you back to our 12th episode, and this is going to be our last episode of the spring semester here at the University of Florida. Right now, it's finals week, so a lot of people are stressed out right now.
Not me.
Not me either. Neither of us have finals, no?
No, I have no finals.
I have no finals either. Maybe like a few little assignments here or there to do, but we're chilling for the most part. And also, Levi, happy Pesach, happy Passover.
Happy
to
Passover.
You.
What did you eat for breakfast this morning?
I had nothing for breakfast actually. I actually barely eat breakfast, which I know isn't the most healthy thing to do. But hypothetically, if I were to have eaten breakfast, I would have probably made some eggs with cream cheese and matzah. What about you?
I've been eating like a lot of avocado matzah.
That's good.
I just mash up avocado and then put like Cholula hot sauce on it and then just eat it with matzah. But I think tomorrow maybe I'll make matzah brai.
Matzah brai?
Yeah, I just didn't wake up like in early enough to be able to make it today.
Matzah brai is great because you can make it both savory or sweet.
Do you use the jelly? Do you like have it in jelly ever?
I don't make matzah brai, but I know that the first time I actually had matzah brai was freshman year here at Chabad. Like Chabad goes crazy with their matzah brai because
I didn't even know.
Because Chabad can't eat what's called kabruks, which is basically you can't have matzah with anything on it, or you can't like cook matzah in your food, because pretty much the whole idea around that is when you put like matzah, like put something on matzah, the moisture is gonna like soften up the matzah, which is going to make it chametz.
Oh my God! Wow, I was meaning to look that up because the rabbi said something about that the other day, and
yeah.
I meant to look it up or check.
So basically, that's like the reason surrounding it, because like for matzah, you make it you put it in the oven, you put it like you just use like water and flour and whatever you do it like you do the perfect amount so that it makes matzah without like making the bread like the wheat leaven. But when you put like moisture on it, for example, like cheese has like a little bit of moisture on it, avocado or whatever you put on it, it's gonna put some moisture, it's gonna soften it up, and it's gonna turn it into like a leavened bread, sort of speak.
So I guess I last night I tried to make matzah lasagna.
Yeah.
And it was one of the worst things I've ever tried to make.
Really?
It was a complete disaster.
Ay.
It was horrible.
So it did not go too well?
No. Well, I used like the cheapest sauce because I went to CVS. I was really lazy, so I just went to CVS and like they either had like $9 sauce or like $3.50 sauce. So I bought like the $3.50 and like
oh my God.
it was like ketchup. It was terrible. Like I didn't even. It was disgusting.
Well, following up on the kabruks thing, so basically Chabad makes good matzah brai because in general you can't have matzah brai if you're Chabad, but on the last day of Pesach you can have kabruks. So you could have matzah pizza, you could have avocado on matzah, whatever. So I don't know like exactly why that's the case because I didn't grow up Chabad, but like that's like the reason. And so they always make some good matzah brai on Pesach on the last day, so it's definitely a good time. I'm surprised the matzah lasagna didn't come out well. I've had like some pretty good matzah lasagna in my time, and I know they've got some good recipes on Instagram. So
I looked up recipes, and it was like New York Times recipes, like an hour and a half to do, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it without a recipe and just figure it out by myself.
I feel like the New York Times isn't gonna have the best kosher for Passover recipes. Like I don't know, like they've got some good like cookbooks out there.
Yeah. Well, I have a Passover cookbook. So I cooked. Oh, yeah, I did. I cooked schnitzel with matzah meal the other day.
Oh, yeah. How'd it go?
It was great.
Yeah?
I loved it. Yeah. Here, I'll show you a picture. The viewers won't be able to see, and then we'll get into the.
How about this? You post the picture on your Instagram when the episode comes out.
Yeah, maybe if we use that as the headliner.
Guys, everyone follow at Levi D'Amato on Instagram so you could check out his amazing. That schnitzel looks amazing, guys. You're going to want to see this. So maybe follow Levi on Instagram right now.
Just to see my schnitzel.
That looks great. Like I see the matzah meal on there. You could add some like herbs on there.
Yeah, get like some seasoning.
Looks like a flavorful chicken.
And the chicken was like perfect. And I bought it from Winn-Dixie. Like it wasn't that expensive or anything, but incredible meal.
Guys, follow Levi for some amazing food pictures and some recipes. You got to start getting on that grind, man.
Yeah, cooking grind,
man.
I love cooking.
Cooking with Levi.
Yeah, maybe I'll make another podcast. I'm just gonna make a million different podcasts.
Yeah.
Just a podcast for every single thing I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's gonna go great for the grind set. I'm sure there's not gonna be any burnout associated with it.
No. Okay, I was searching for like a good segue to get into the next topic, but there's just no good segue. So I guess we'll just start talking about it with the encampments that we are seeing.
Yeah.
All within days of each other, all around the country. It really started with Columbia University, where they had a huge, they call it an encampment. They're basically setting up like tents and such on the main lawn in Columbia, and chanting and forcibly not allowing people to enter. There's one video that's been going around on the internet a lot where they're making like a chain kind of wall that walks forward, and they're like, the Zionists are not allowed to enter the encampment.
Yeah.
And then everyone eerily goes, the Zionists are not allowed to enter the encampment.
Yeah, these chants are so weird because they're not like chanting these like slogans or these like rhymes or anything anymore. They're literally just like they're chanting after each other.
They chant everything. They go like, hello, good morning to you. And then everyone is like, good morning to you.
Yeah,
and then they just walk forward.
It's so weird. It's so like they're like I've been like scrolling through like the UF like divestment Instagram account, and it's literally like it's like a communist manifesto. Like the guy, Aaron Ali McClory, I think he might be running the Instagram, but he's the president of the University of Florida Young Democratic Socialists of America. He's basically like calling people like comrades, and it's crazy. It's like a socialist type of deal, and that Instagram in and of itself is kind of like it's like a cesspool of just anti-Semitism.
I haven't looked at that one specific. I've obviously been monitoring the like Students for Justice for Palestine and like the Jewish Voice for Peace one, but it's all they're all organizing that together, like the UF DSA and SJP, but it hasn't been of course what we see here is nothing like what we see everywhere else, which has been for a lot of the things that have been going on over the past few months. But Columbia really started it. And then one of the leaders of the movement at Columbia, I don't know his name off the top of my head. Do you know his name?
I don't.
Okay, wait, I have it though, because it's Kaimani James. He was the one leading that chant about the Zionists are not allowed to enter the encampment.
Yeah.
And he was actually removed from the Columbia campus, but it's kind of unclear what they're saying. But the administration said he was removed because there was a video that resurfaced of him from about a month ago, maybe a few weeks ago, where he said that Zionists do not deserve to live. This is a video that's available. That.
Yeah,
you can watch this on Instagram. So he's one of the organizers of this event.
I'll link that in the bio, the video. But yeah, in terms of Columbia, there are some similarities. Columbia has started to suspend students. Have started to terminate contracts of staff who have been involved. And the same thing is going for the University of Florida. They've been threatening to suspend students and fire faculty, which kudos to the University of Florida. I think that's 100% what they should be allowed to do. Because people have been just sleeping there, camping there, everything like that. I think in FSU, and I know we, obviously as Gators we hate FSU, but I think they started to do an encampment there, and this is what somebody told me. And then they turned on the sprinkler system and just made everybody go home.
Who turned on the sprinkler system?
I guess the university.
Oh my god!
I love that. I love that. I think they should have done that a lot earlier here. Yeah,
the sprinkler system.
Yeah.
Well, no. Okay.
Turn the sprinklers on.
What happened here was just a paper was given to the protesters, and it essentially said, like, listen, you can do the protest, you can hold signs, you can chant stuff at a reasonable volume, but just, don't bring the tents, don't sleep here, don't do these things. And they posted on Instagram, this is a draconian measure that's been, but that's really all it should be. That's all you should be able to do in a protest because it's finals week. They're outside the library. They're screaming. They're disturbing people inside the library. we can get into the messaging of the protest. But I was curious, like, what do you make of the media coverage of this? Because, like, from New York Times, Washington Post, because I keep seeing it as like an anti-war protest, but I don't really characterize these as anti-war protests.
What I've been seeing in the media is that like they're comparing like, oh, this is like the
Vietnam.
same type. Yeah, it's Vietnam. It's like the Vietnam protest, where it's really not. It's calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. It really is, and at least with the Vietnam protest, at least America was like the one involved, like actually sending troops to that war. Right. Yes, there's some involvement with America in this war, but it's not to the same extent. And the chants that you have been hearing are racist and genocidal against the Jewish people.
Yeah, and not, of course, not everyone, but there's too many videos that are just ignored. It seems like there's just too many videos where it's just clear that there's incitement of violence and anti-Semitism. I mean,
did you see the one where the girl was chanting, "We are Hamas, we are Hamas, we are Hamas"? How is that not a genocidal chant?
Yeah, and there was in Princeton, there was a Hezbollah flag. Where do you buy a Hezbollah flag from in the United States?
Temu.
I have no idea. What is Temu?
Temu?
No, I don't know what that is.
You didn't watch the Super Bowl?
No.
The Super Bowl, you know that
I did watch the Super Bowl.
Where you could buy these like really expensive things for like literally like $2.
Oh my God! So you can buy a Hezbollah flag on
I don't know. I'm just making a joke.
I'm kidding. There's a researcher from Princeton, Elizabeth Tsarnov, and she was. This happened a few months before October 7. She was in Iraq, Israeli-Russian. She was a PhD researcher at Princeton, and she was kidnapped by Hezbollah's organization in Iraq, and her sister just started screaming at the Iraqi prime minister like a week ago. This isn't really something that gets covered that much because of like the whole Israel thing. Like this is kind of out of that. But so to see the school where she is literally working from, and there are students holding a Hezbollah flag of the organization that kidnapped a researcher at that school is just insanity to me. Just insanity.
I want to talk a little bit more about Jewish Voices for Peace in this whole thing, which, by the way,
did you see the backwards?
Yes, I was literally gonna pull it up. So, literally, guys, listen to this. So, this is Pesach, this is Passover, right? And there's a lot of Jewish Voices for Peace people who are part of these encampments because they're literally a bunch of bozos. And one of the things they did is made like a Seder plate, and like all the Jewish words like charoses, chorpas, maror, like beitza, were all spelled backwards in Hebrew. As you know, Hebrew letters, they don't go from left to right, they go from right to left. They spell them from left to right. I mean,
how does that even happen?
Can't
you just like do?
I'll tell you why this happens, because they use this whole Jewish thing as their calling card to be like, oh, well, we're not anti-Semitic because we're Jewish ourselves. You guys don't know jack shit about Judaism.
Well, I mean, how do you even? It's like you have to try to write Hebrew backwards.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, props to you guys. It's pretty impressive. I've never seen anyone write Hebrew backwards before, unless you're like in kindergarten and you're learning Hebrew like in a Jewish day school or something like that. But you guys are literally 18 to 22-year-olds, possibly older, who are writing Hebrew. Like, if this isn't like a proof that these people are not actually like knowledgeable in Judaism, then I don't know what is. I mean, I saw this other video where this girl was like, what are people in Jewish Voices for Peace doing over Passover, over Pesach? And then this guy clips the video. He's like, oh, we're gonna watch the Rugrats Passover special. Like, Is that what Passover is about? Watching the Jewish the Rugrats Passover special?
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
You know the Rugrats,
no.
right? The Rugrats is an old TV show, 80s and 90s, like a little cartoon.
Oh, okay.
And they had like a Hanukkah special. Oh. They had a Pesach special. But the fact that like that is what their connection with Passover is, the Rugrats special, it's ridiculous. It just shows that they aren't actually Jewish. They don't care about Judaism. they're using it as their like it's like Candace Owens and how far right conservatives are using her as like this puppet, like, oh, look, this black person like agrees with me, so obviously woke is wrong. So it's like
it's
that same type of
yeah.
it's tokenism, exactly. And what was I gonna say? I was
It's also important to remember. Wait, you can't. Unless you're. Do you remember what you were gonna say?
I don't remember.
I
got lost in thought.
Understood. Because there's a lot of thoughts going on.
There's a lot of thoughts.
A lot of these, also the protesters, specifically at Columbia, a lot of them are from like very wealthy families. One of them is the daughter of a USPS executives or owners,
really?
And she killed 2 people in a car crash a few years back. This was in the New York Post, and she got away with like just a fine for it. This is the girl who it's presumed that there's also, I don't know if it's the same girl actually, but there's also the girl with the white hair that's holding the Al-Qassam next target sign. And this isn't a lot of these are dumb college kids, but this isn't dumb college kids at the point where you know what the Al-Qassam brigades are, because this means that you are deeply invested in researching these terror organizations. Yeah. You know what you're talking about. You know what you want.
Mm-hmm. Even the people who are leading the chants of the Intifada chants, they know what they're talking about. It's the people who are following along and chanting with them who don't really understand what the Intifada is. Because I didn't really know about the Intifada until college.
Really?
And I went to, a religious Jewish school for my entire life. So the fact that people know about these things, it means that they understand what they're talking about. But like you said, a lot of these are just dumb college kids.
There are a lot of videos of that where it's like they don't know, like they're put on the spot kind of, and they literally don't know. It's almost comical at sometimes.
And even a lot of them who get educated about it are like, oh, shit, like, okay, now that makes so much sense. You know what? I'm gonna just like step back. There are videos about that.
Yeah.
Rudy Rochman was like, I was in Gaza, asked me questions, and he really was like changing people's minds.
I did see that. That was in Washington Square Park. I think.
So there is hope. There really is a lot of hope to like changing people's minds on this, because I do strongly believe that a lot of these people are just stupid college kids who are just following along with an agenda, because the people who they're following along with are the people that they'll generally follow along with other political issues.
Yeah, I think they think it's a similar thing to the Vietnam thing. I think a lot of them are genuinely upset about civilians being killed in Gaza, and I think they see like this protest as an opportunity to like stand with those civilians. But it's really not, those protests are not really chanting for a ceasefire. They're not. I mean, we see some chants for ceasefire, but a lot of it is intifada. A lot of it is like
Zionists go home.
Yeah, resistance is justified on stolen land.
Yeah. I saw this one chant,
things like this
here, where it was people like, it was like, UFPD were just kind of like parked along near where the Plaza of the Americas are, not really even threatening the Gaza encampment. And they were chanting, the people in the Gaza encampment were chanting, UFPD, KKK, IDF, they're all the same.
Oh, yeah. Was that your first time hearing that?
Yeah, I didn't.
Because they've done that in New York. Like, that's
really?
what, like, NYPD, IDF, KKK.
They're all the same.
They're all the same. The NYPD and the IDF are very different from the KKK, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
They are both very flawed organizations, but I think the KKK is a little bit more of a flawed organization.
I'm really surprised that they chanted IDF, because it's usually like IOF,
right?
Like Israeli Offense Forces.
Yes, they were kind of handing the IDF at least the fact that they can call, because it's always about them, like Israel in quotation marks, or the occupation forces, something like this. So interesting that they mention IDF in their chant. But yeah. Sorry, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, also I wanted to say, like, one of the other things that was really upsetting me, at least about this, I mean, I guess encampments all around the country, is that like businesses are giving them like free food, and they're like supplying them with all these things, and then when they're not, and some of them are not supplied those things, and they get all like pissy about like, oh, we're here, we're starving, or whatever. I mean, like, they're just being babies for the most
Oh,
part.
well, Representative Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, her daughter was expelled from Colombia
Womp womp.
and for participating to some extent, or I don't know what exactly it was that she did to be expelled, but
Yeah.
and there was an article about her where it said that she's homeless and can't get food
Womp womp.
anymore after being expelled from Colombia, which is just a ridiculous, preposterous.
How is she homeless? Just go back home to where her mom is.
Yeah,
Go home.
I don't know. And I think also the school offered to give her like prepackaged food because she was like, I depend on the meal plan or whatever. And they're like, okay, we can give you like food. But it was just ridiculous. It all just takes away the attention like from the actual situation in Israel, in Gaza. And like the thing that upsets me most is like, and I know you follow me on Instagram, and like most of the posting I do is like mostly about the hostages.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the most important thing, like to the
100%.
whole situation for both sides. I think, and that's what our last guest said on the last podcast too, Luke Bernard. But like, you never hear a single mention of the hostages at any one of these, even at the Oscars with the red pin. I really would have loved to see if they could have at least worn the red pin and the yellow ribbon. I think that would have been like a great example to set for the country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really upsetting to me.
Yeah. No, I agree that they don't care about the hostages or the fact that October 7th happened. None of these people, or at least the large majority of these people, when October 7th happened, before any Israeli retaliation, they didn't post about condemning Hamas or the fact that the 1,200 people were killed or all those hostages were taken. They didn't do that. They didn't care. A lot of them even were saying, well, it's justified because of what Israel supposedly has done over the past 75 years, which is blown way out of proportion, and a lot of it is a complete distortion of the actual narrative. So yeah,
Listen, I think regardless of what you think of any country, like any attack like that, you should still condemn. I mean, it's so easy. Think about what happened in Russia a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
The government of Russia is committing horrific atrocities. Okay, it's a horrific government. The people of Russia, no problem, but the Putin government and the war in Ukraine, but they suffered the most horrific terrorist attack. And there was I sympathize completely with the Russians because they were Russian civilians who were gunned down in a concert. You know, it's so easy to separate governments from civilians.
Yeah.
I just don't understand
Even if it was like a country like North Korea and a bunch of terrorists went into North Korea and killed a bunch of...
Just butchered people.
Yeah, butchered innocent North Koreans. It'd be horrible. And obviously North Korea is a horrible country. Not necessarily the country itself, but the government and Kim Jong-un. But, I mean, if innocent people are being killed or kidnapped, I mean, that's horrible.
Yeah, I agree completely. So, I guess, do you want to continue? Do you have anything more to say about
I want to ask you.
Okay, ask me a question.
Do you think that these encampments around college campuses across the country are leading to the world being like, okay, this whole narrative is ridiculous, and we got to stand with Israel? Or do you think it's the complete opposite? And do you think what their message is doing is actually working? Because, a few days ago, we just saw that all those countries just signed that, agreement that calling for the release of the hostages and, like, unconditional release of the hostages. And once those hostages are free, they're like, look, like, the war will be over once the hostages are free. And it was signed by Israel, by the United States, United Kingdom, various countries across the globe. I mean, what do you see is the trajectory that this has caused?
Well, I think the way that like governments behave is also so different from the way that like populations respond to like these movements. Because like we saw it right after October 7, there was a lot of sympathy from like pretty much every government, like Western government, but there wasn't sympathy from a lot of people in around the world in different countries.
Yeah.
So like, I do think this will be a huge topic for the next election, and could see a big push in terms of not only the Jewish vote but the American vote in general if the protests like continue to get out of hand, because it's not only on college campuses, but it's like people disturbing flights, like stopping in front of cars that are trying to get to places, and it's like most people don't have a strong like the minority is very loud and the majority is very silent. So the most people don't care about the situation, or if they don't, they maybe care a little bit, but they don't have such strong opinions. They are going to be upset when they see extremist views being expressed on the streets. And when you hear "Death to America," because we have seen "Death to America" being chanted we are. In a lot of these places, that's something that Americans, rightfully so, should not be 100%. Happy about.
And I think, well, first of all, on the topic of the delayed flights and everything like that, my cousins they live in Israel. They were actually in Chicago, and they like literally almost missed their flight because of this protest on the highway. Ridiculous. But it's really weird with this upcoming election because I feel like Biden is in a very, very tough spot.
Extremely tough spot.
Because like on one hand, you're seeing all these pro-Palestinian people who are like, Biden's not doing enough for Gaza, and he's funding Israel, and he's fueling genocide. We can't vote for Biden. We're just going to vote for nobody. But then on the other hand, when Biden says, like, and honestly, I think rightfully so, that like condemning the fact that 7 of the World Central Kitchen volunteers were killed. And look, armies make mistakes all the time. I definitely think that was a mistake by IDF to be able to do that. Or when Biden condemns certain things that Israel does just to push them a little bit to the other side, then other communities are saying, and even people of my friend group were like, oh, well, Joe Biden said he was a Zionist. What happened? Now he's doing the opposite of what he's saying. So now maybe we should vote for Trump because Trump would never do that. Biden's in a very tough spot. He's like pinned up against a wall in a hard place. And I think, especially, because I honestly didn't really see Biden being condemning any of these encampments or anything like that, or saying like, hey, like they're literally chanting "Death to America." This is wrong. That side kind of has a point to what they're saying. Biden's not really doing enough to say like, look, this narrative that's being spewed by the pro-Hamas, anti-Israel groups all around college campuses across the country. He's not pushing them enough to say like this is wrong. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this affects the election, because all of this could really hurt Biden, but it could also really not. So it's really hard to it's really interesting to see where this is going to lead to in the election.
They're in an extremely tough position, the Biden administration. My biggest problem with their administration is not really their messaging about the war in Gaza and specific things they've done, like specific sanctions they've applied. Like they just applied a sanction to a specific battalion within a brigade in the IDF. Those things I don't have as much of a problem with as the messaging at home. I don't think there was a strong enough messaging about these protests.
Yeah.
There's clear anti-Semitism, and it wasn't mentioned. It was mentioned in a both sides thing. Whenever there's a condemnation of anti-Semitism, it's a condemnation of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and other forms of hatred.
Yeah.
We never get clear statements.
Yeah. I agree.
Another problem I have is and this is something that's just changed a few days ago, slightly maybe, with the signing of the letter by all those countries, and also with President Biden inviting a girl who's American-Israeli girl who both of her parents were killed on October 7 to the White House. But they haven't done enough of a good job raising awareness about the hostages. There are 6 American citizens that are held hostage in Gaza, and we all knew Brittany Griner when she was in Russia for the weed pen, but not anyone knows the names of any of the American hostages other than the Jewish community.
Yeah.
So those are the serious problems that I have.
Yeah, I think if Biden just makes a press conference, because, a lot of the condemnations of these kind of protests or asking for, calling for the hostages to come home, it's more of kind of like Biden's spokespeople.
It's like Twitter posts.
Or like maybe one of Biden's spokespeople or something like that. X, yeah. But I think if Joe Biden went out there, had a press conference and said, look, these protests that we're seeing on college campuses are wrong, are disgusting. They're calling for the death of America, death of Jews, death of Israel. We need the hostages to come home. That's all he says. He leaves the stage. I think he'll win the election, 100%. Because look, will the pro-Palestinian people vote for him? No, I don't think so.
Well, but if you believe that if they truly believe as they do that he supports genocide, they're not going to vote for him, no matter what he does. Yeah. And anything other than just stopping all aid to Israel and just cutting off ties is nothing enough for them.
I understand that, but which is just to finish what I was saying, they're not going to vote for him, but they're also not going to vote for Trump. And I doubt they'll vote for RFK because RFK also supports Israel as well.
Yeah.
All these three candidates thankfully support Israel. I mean, we could get to other issues regarding all three of them, but they're not going to vote for anybody. But who Biden will appease to and appeal to are the people who are very strongly pro-Israel, who also are on the fence about Trump. Maybe they'll vote for Trump if Biden pushes a little bit too much to the left on certain things when it comes to Israel, or pushes Netanyahu too much, or pushes other parts of the IDF and their operation too much. But all he says is he condemns the protests about the anti-Israel protests and pro-Hamas protests, and he wants the hostages to come home. He's going to do everything he can to get those hostages home, and those encampments are disgusting. He's going to get those people. He's going to get those people to vote for him. Yeah. I think he can win.
I think that's an interesting perspective. I think that's an interesting perspective that I hadn't really thought of before. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think also that these people understand, like, the Biden administration has been working tirelessly to get a deal done, and as we know, Hamas has just turned down the deal so many times.
Yeah.
And I guess we can transition into talking about that now, because I have here like the details that I just read from last night because over the next couple of days we'll be hearing about it does look to be this is the last chance, I guess, for there to be a deal.
Yeah.
But the original offer was 40 people that were going to be released by Hamas, and they said at first they couldn't find 40 people. Anything they say is really to be taken at a grain of salt. So then now the Israeli government has given like a much broader, I guess, mandate to the negotiators. So withdrawal from the main like corridor that's like currently separating the Gaza Strip, which would then allow like civilians from the south to move north. That's something that's on the table, as well as right now the number is at like 33 hostages that would be released. That's the offer right now. And they're offering one hostage every day, which would also, they don't have the numbers on the prisoners yet. Obviously, this is an extremely like lopsided deal for Israel, but the fact that Israel is pushing for this deal, and I know that there's a lot of criticism of the prime minister for maybe dragging his heels for this deal, but a lot of the public supports this deal, and the fact that the people in these protests just can't understand that is just absurd to me. I mean, they're really stooping extremely low to get this deal done. They really are trying to get this deal done.
No, I agree. And it just kind of shows how much Israel prioritizes the life of their people, and how Hamas doesn't really. So yeah, it's so important that we bring those hostages home, and condemning this message of the destruction of the state of Israel, 100%.
And also, there's another problem. I know we've talked a lot about Israel on the world stage and like the international community, and there's all these organizations like ICJ, ICC, and now so the ICC, which is different from the ICJ.
What are those organizations?
So the ICJ was the International Criminal Court of the International Court of Justice, and that was with the genocide case that was brought by South Africa.
Yeah.
Which was the former head of the ICJ just said in an interview a few days ago that despite what a lot of anti-Israel people have been saying, the conclusion of the court was that it was not a genocide. Obviously, the findings will be not released for a few years, but just important to note that the ICC focuses on like individual people. So it issues like arrest warrants for people essentially. And so it is planning at least on issuing arrest warrants for a few members of the Israeli government, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, Herzi Halevi, who's the commander of the military, Yoav Gallant, defense minister. And this is like maybe the most serious threat to international pressure on Israel that we've seen yet. It's like just started happening last night, so it'll be a little while, and it's not really that much reported in the news. But the U.S. isn't part of the International Criminal Court, which means Israel's always thought like, well, we have the U.S. Like in the UN, the U.S. always vetoes, but there's no country that could step up and veto this motion that's being passed forward. So this is a pretty serious thing that's happening right now. And like Japan, Germany, and France are all members of that International Criminal Court. So it would mean like essentially if you would travel to those countries, then technically it would be those countries' responsibility to arrest you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that. Well, I mean, I don't know too much about that.
Yeah.
So that's definitely very interesting that you brought that up. And I think that could have it could definitely have a negative impact on what is going to happen here with protests and things like that, and the pressure that will continue to be seen on Israel. I mean, I don't think that all these people that have these arrest warrants on them, I don't think that they're completely in the right on a lot of the things that they've been doing. But at least until this war is over, we should make that assessment.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's slightly performative. Like, I have plenty of criticisms for these people that are named in this, but at the same time, has the ICC issued warrants to like Assad, all of these? Yeah, exactly. Because the problem is that they're exempt. Sinwar is exempt because they're not a country, even though they were the de facto leaders of the Gaza Strip, But still, they never get put in any international thing because it's useless. Because they don't follow the rules of war.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to?
No, those were just the two political things. Well, what else should I share? I mean, you've seen the videos that have been posted in the past 2 days with like hostages. Have you seen that?
Oh, with Hirsch?
So there was Hirsch. That was I think 3 or 4 days ago. Okay. Hirsch Goldberg. Which it's a miracle that he's alive because his arm was blown off on October 7. And then yesterday there was another video released with 2 hostages. One of them, which is Omri Moran, who his brother-in-law just came to UF to speak. Moshe Levi, who's been advocating for months. So really like glad to see that. I know it's such a horrific feeling to like get a sign of life in that kind of manner, but it's still a great news, I guess, that these hostages are alive. I guess we don't know how many, but and it perhaps shows that Hamas is interested in making a deal, or that they're just doing psychological terror, which you can never really know. But
I think it's more on the psychological terror is more of my bet on that.
Well, I'm not an expert at like hostage negotiations or that. I mean, I was reading this from this guy Scott Richards, who has worked in hostage negotiations for a while. He was saying he perceived it as a good sign, but again, we're not experts, and
we're not.
We've seen these videos before that end up being horrific. So
I mean, because Hamas really is on their last legs here,
right?
I think again, we're not experts on this, but I feel like what their plan could be is just kind of giving like a final hurrah or like some kind of final push to kind of get some sort of victory in some capacity.
I guess it depends like what is their actual goal. Like, do they actually want to survive as an organization after this? Because if so, then they should instantly push for a deal right now. But if not, then they're immediately threatened by this upcoming invasion into Rafah that we haven't really talked about. But so that is a threat that's coming. That apparently the plans have been prepared for that. So
yeah, or maybe what their plan could be is that look, they know that they're not going to survive long term as an organization, but what they're doing over these past couple of months is kind of turning the entire world against Israel. So no matter what happens, Israel's always going to look like the enemy, the loser or the enemy. And so they're going to have all these sanctions against them, and they're going to have all these people, especially, the college students who eventually will become older and become more like the leaders of the world in the next generation. They're going to look at Israel and eventually, hopefully, their hope is that they're going to try to get rid of Israel entirely, and turn the entire world against them. Maybe that's their goal. I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert on this.
Yeah.
But there's definitely so many ways that you can look at it.
Yeah, we could finish with this. We haven't talked about this, but there was a great article in Haaretz like from a month ago about this. It was written by an Israeli guy who went to Egypt just about 2 months ago, and he was speaking to people he knew from Gaza that were involved in Hamas, not in terms of like they were basically just high-ranking members in society, and like in the Gaza Strip, it's kind of like a mafia. So if you're going to be high-ranking in society, you have to be in these Hamas meetings. You have to discuss these things. And it was a really great insight into kind of the mentality of Hamas and its leaders. And it's truly eye-opening because they genuinely are religious fanatics. And I think a lot of people just don't understand that. Like, they had plans to divide every, like, part of Israel. And, like, the leader, Sinwar, goes to the guy who's interviewed in this piece, and he's like, you'll be the mayor of this town, and, like, you'll manage this. Like, it's genuinely insane that they thought, at least from this article, that they could achieve this victory.
Yeah.
It's a genocidal death cult. That's what it is, and I think a lot of people obviously aren't aware of that.
I think they're either unaware of that or they don't care. But I think for the most part, they're unaware. And they're.
It started with being unaware. Like, a lot of it was denial at the beginning of October 7, and now we're kind of shifting into, like, glorification and support for that, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. Is there any final thoughts?
No. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I feel like we should end on some kind of lighter note.
Yeah, can we? Well, wait, let's discuss the plans for the future of the podcast. So we're finishing right now for the semester, but we still want to do episodes, like, kind of intermittently, I guess, right?
So for me and Levi, we're not going to be in the same city over the summer. Levi, tell our amazing audience where you're going to be.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to be interning at the World Jewish Congress. Going to be working as a communications intern there. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm not sure exactly, like, what my day-to-day is going to look like yet exactly, but I'm excited.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for you, Levi.
Thank you.
And I'll be in Tampa. I'll be interning at WUSF, which is the NPR member station of the Tampa Bay area. So I'm very excited for that, and working with some amazing people over there. So we're going to be in separate cities. So we're going to be doing our episodes on Zoom. We'll do them more intermittently. If we have some kind of interview we could set up, we'll do that, and we'll put out that episode. But it's not going to be a weekly, bi-weekly, tri-weekly type thing that we've been doing kind of this semester and this year.
But maybe we want next year to really hit the ground and, like, get video. If anyone knows a video or social media person, we're hiring.
We're very interested. We don't pay. So, but you could put this on your resume, I think.
Yeah, put it on the resume. Social media. Man.
Yeah, show future employers what you've been doing. But we're working on possibly expanding this operation, maybe just a little bit, maybe adding some new cool content with this, maybe making a separate Instagram account. We'll see.
We'll see.
You'll never know. You'll get the update when it happens. But and we really appreciate everyone's support of this podcast and sharing and liking our stories and all the amazing comments and positive comments that you have on our podcast and support that you have for us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you said we needed to end on a positive. I mean, I guess that was a positive thing.
It was a pretty positive thing.
Yeah, that was positive. Okay. You should come to the Passover barbecue.
I'll try coming.
I'm going to a barbecue in, like, a few hours, and it's going to be for Passover. Matzah, maybe.
Matzah, maybe.
I want to make
Most likely there's gonna be.
I want to make like some cool matzah recipes like over the next few days.
Well,
but,
you have a few days to do it.
Yeah, I know. Until Tuesday night, right?
Just scroll on Instagram. Instagram's got to make some. Well, some of the recipes on Instagram I think are kind of ridiculous, but
I want to make like hot dogs, matzah hot dog, like pigs.
That sounds kind of ridiculous.
Pigs in the blanket. You can roll the matzah and then like. Well, I guess that's for the Chabad. They wouldn't accept that because it's the wet.
On the last day, they'll accept it.
On the last day, I'll make matzah hot dogs.
Try it out.
I wrote a blog about matzah pizza the other day.
Really?
Because it's like Italian, Jewish. Because I'm like Italian, Jewish. I wanted to write about. It's like the culmination of all of my culture and that sort of thing.
And that's really funny because I was talking to my girlfriend about it, who's also part Italian. And I was like, what do Italians think of matzah pizza? So, Levi, you're Italian. What do Italians think of matzah pizza?
I wrote in the blog that I love it and I hate it at the same time because it never works. Like, it just breaks apart or the middle is soggy usually. But I make it every single year and, like, I still enjoy it. I don't know. It just feels like part of my culture that I should do. I don't know.
Yeah. It's really interesting for me because I recently started liking matzah pizza. I used to hate matzah pizza, but now I kind of like it a lot more. What was this blog for?
It was for a final project in a class. I was just like, I don't know what to write. I'll just write a blog. It's on my Substack. So I have a Substack.
Was this for your grad class?
No, just like on 1 credit class, like media entrepreneurship.
Oh, I have to do that. I have to take that class.
Enjoy.
Not good.
It's fine. No, it's fine. I mean, I'm just writing blogs about matzah pizza.
Chilling.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, and have a great rest of your Passover for everyone who celebrate.
If you celebrate, yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.